Here is the story adapted to a United States setting, with characters, social and cultural elements, and background replaced with American equivalents, while keeping the core story intact. On the night of my birthday, my husband and his mistress walked into my home, their faces beaming with pride. 15 minutes later, their expressions turned deathly pale after I made a phone call that would shatter their lives forever. The clock on the wall chimed 12 times, signaling the turn of the day. It was now Laura's birthday. On her 30th, she sat alone at a large dining table. This house felt too big, too cold, too quiet for one person. Before her was a small plate with a single slice of chocolate lava cake. She'd bought it for herself on her way home from work. A small gift for herself because she knew no one else would remember, or rather, care. 2 candles, a 3 and a 0, stood tall on top, but they were unlit. The silence in the house was so thick it was suffocating, broken only by the hum of the central air and the ticking of the clock. Laura stared at the front door, hoping for a miracle, hoping that Ethan, her husband, would walk in with a surprise, just like he used to. Ethan had woken her up at midnight, blindfolded her, and driven her to the airport. They flew to Hawaii for just 2 days, spending their time on the beach, laughing endlessly. The Ethan of the past was so warm, so full of love, so devoted to her. That man was long gone, replaced by a stranger who shared her bed but felt thousands of miles away. Replaced by a man who always came home late, whose phone was always locked, whose scent often carried the trace of another woman's perfume. An expensive perfume that wasn't Laura's. Laura rose from her chair. She didn't touch the cake. She walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly. She had to keep a clear head. Tonight was the climax. Tonight was the night she would end this entire charade. At 8 p.m., the front door finally opened. Ethan walked in. He looked neat. Too neat for someone who claimed to have been working hard all day. His blue dress shirt was still crisp, his hair perfectly styled. He seemed surprised to see Laura still awake, sitting in the living room. "Oh, you're still up, babe?" Ethan asked, loosening his tie. His eyes darted around, avoiding direct eye contact with Laura. "I was waiting for you," Laura replied softly, her voice flat. "Happy birthday," she added, but the words were meant for herself. Ethan froze for a moment, surprise flashing across his face, quickly replaced by a facade of guilt. "Oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. Happy birthday." He moved closer, trying to hug her. Laura didn't move, letting the embrace feel awkward and cold. She could smell it. That scent again. Jessica's scent, sweet, strong, and nauseating. I have to go back to the office." "There's an emergency meeting," Ethan said, hurriedly releasing his hug. "Jessica, my boss. She wants all the financial reports revised tonight. It's a huge project." Laura looked at her husband, the man she had been married to for 7 years. The man who had promised before God to be faithful. The man who now stood before her, lying without blinking. Working late again at Jessica's office? "Yeah, I'm so sorry. I promise we'll celebrate tomorrow. I'll get you the best gift." Ethan grabbed his briefcase, checked his phone, and rushed towards the door. "Drive safe," Laura said. It was all she could manage. After the sound of Ethan's car faded into the night, the house fell silent again. But this time, Laura was no longer waiting. She walked to her home office. This room was the only place in the house that felt truly hers, neat, organized, and safe. She sat in front of her laptop and entered a complex password. The screen lit up, displaying a clean desktop. She opened a hidden folder, a folder named Project Justice. For the past 6 months, Laura hadn't just been sitting around and crying. The moment her suspicion first arose, she started digging. She was not a foolish woman to be easily deceived. She was a forensic accountant before she decided to quit to focus on her home life at Ethan's request. The biggest mistake Ethan and Jessica made was underestimating her. They thought this quiet, unassuming woman only knew about home decor and book clubs. The folder contained evidence she had painstakingly collected. There was a subfolder named Visuals. It contained CCTV footage from various places: upscale restaurants where Ethan and Jessica had romantic dinners, hotel lobbies where they checked in using a corporate credit card. There was even footage from a hidden camera she had installed in Ethan's home office, which recorded their flirtatious phone conversations. There was an audio subfolder containing recordings of Ethan's voice wooing Jessica and recordings of Jessica pressuring Ethan to divorce Laura quickly. And most importantly, the financial subfolder. This was where Laura's expertise shone. She had found the trail. Ethan, under Jessica's orders, had been embezzling funds from the company. Not just any company, but the company owned by Jessica's own family. Jessica was using Ethan as a pawn, a scapegoat to steal from her own ailing father. They had been transferring money, bit by bit, to an offshore shell account. An account in Jessica's name. Laura looked at all the evidence. She had enough to put them both in prison for decades. But one thing was missing. She needed a clear verbal confession from Jessica. At a moment when Jessica felt she was on top of the world, something that would tie all this evidence together. Laura glanced at the clock on her laptop. 11 p.m. She opened a tracking app she had secretly installed on Ethan's phone. The blue dot showing Ethan's location wasn't at his office building. The dot was at a luxury apartment complex downtown. Jessica's apartment. "You think I'm a fool," Laura muttered to the glowing screen. "Tonight, you will give me the best birthday present. You will give me your confession." Laura turned off the laptop screen but didn't shut it down. She just had to wait. She knew Jessica's character, arrogant, condescending, and a show-off. And she knew Ethan's character, weak, cowardly, and easily controlled. A perfect combination for a downfall. She would wait for that call. The call that would end everything. Time crawled by slowly. 12:30 a.m., 1 a.m. Laura sat silently in her office, accompanied by a tense silence. She didn't turn on the lights, letting the glow from the laptop monitor be the only source of light. Outside, rain began to fall. First a drizzle, then a downpour, as if nature itself knew the storm that was about to break. Laura didn't feel tired. Adrenaline kept her eyes open and her mind sharp. She had been preparing for this moment for months. Every lie from Ethan, every snide remark from Jessica she heard through mutual friends, every fake smile she received, she stored it all away. She swallowed it, turning the pain into fuel. Fuel for tonight. At exactly 1:30 a.m., her phone, lying on the desk, vibrated and then rang. The screen's light illuminated Laura's calm face. The screen displayed the name Ethan, my husband. Laura's heart beat a little faster, but her hands remained steady. This was it. The moment had arrived. She took a deep breath. On her laptop, the call recording app was on standby. She swiped the green icon on her phone's screen and pressed the speaker button. She didn't say a word. She waited. There was a moment of silence on the other end, only the sound of breathing and faint, muffled music. "Hello?" The voice wasn't Ethan's. It was a woman's voice. A voice Laura knew very well from the recordings she had collected. Jessica's voice, sounding hoarse, lazy, and triumphant. "Hello, Laura. Still awake, you bitch?" Laura remained silent. She knew Jessica was trying to provoke a reaction. On the other end, Jessica laughed, a forced, mocking laugh. "Oh, I know you're there. Listen, your husband is with me." Ethan's faint, panicked voice could be heard in the background. "Jessica, stop it. What are you doing? Give me back my phone." "Shh, ha, darling," Jessica's voice came again, clearer now. "I'm talking to your wife. She needs to know her place." Then Jessica refocused on Laura. "Ethan is in my bed. We're sleeping together tonight. He's mine now. He loves me more than a boring housewife like you, who only knows how to manage a household and wear those frumpy clothes." The insults were fired like bullets, designed to wound. But Laura felt nothing. She was focused on what was happening. "He told me he's sick of you," Jessica continued, her voice growing more arrogant with the lack of resistance. "He's sick of your flat life. Tonight, he's here with me. And you know what? He's so much better in bed with me." Ethan's voice was heard again. "Jessica! That's enough!" "Shut up, Ethan. Let her hear it," Jessica snapped, then returned to the phone. "So, Laura, don't ever bother us again. Don't call Ethan anymore. Just accept your defeat. Divorce him and get the hell out of our lives. You stupid woman. A total silence hung in the air. Jessica waited. She waited for Laura to cry, to scream, or to beg. She wanted to hear the sound of a wife's devastation. Laura finally opened her mouth. Her voice was calm, cold as ice, and crystal clear. You can have my useless husband. That was it. 6 words. On the other end, Jessica was silent. This was not the reaction she had expected. Laura continued, He's trash now. If you want to pick up someone else's leftovers, be my guest. What? What did you say? Jessica's voice was shocked and angry. I said, Laura emphasized each word. You can have him, but listen to this very carefully, Jessica. I may be a stupid woman in your eyes, but only a more stupid woman would want a cheating man with no self-respect like Ethan. How dare you? I'm not finished, Laura cut her off. You think you've won? You think by taking my husband you get everything? No, Jessica, you're the stupid one. Shut your mouth, you bitch, Jessica shrieked. Laura hung up. She didn't give Jessica a chance to retaliate. She was in control of this conversation from start to finish. Laura looked at her laptop screen. The recording app showed a new audio file. The file name, Jessica, Confession, Cento Trenta, MPTR. The best birthday present she had ever received. Laura's fingers flew across the keyboard. She attached the audio file to an email she had drafted a week ago. The recipient, her lawyer. The subject, Final Proof, Execute Plan. The body of the email read, Verbal confession obtained. They are coming to the house. Prepare the team as we discussed. It's time to take out the trash. Laura hit send. She knew what would happen next. Jessica, her pride severely wounded by being called stupid by Laura, would not stay put in her apartment. Her arrogance would bring her here. She would drag Ethan with her to prove, in person, who the real winner was. To see Laura's face crumble in person, Laura glanced at the clock. 1:45 a.m. The drive from Jessica's apartment to her house would take about an hour and a half if they sped on the empty streets. They would arrive around 3:15 a.m. Laura got up from her chair. She went to the bathroom, washed her face, and changed out of her loungewear into a stylish but conservative dress. She sprayed on a bit of her favorite perfume. She wasn't welcoming guests. She was presiding over an execution. 1 hour and a half. Laura had an hour and a half to prepare a welcoming party for her husband and his mistress, and 15 minutes after they arrived, it would all be over. At 1:45 a.m., the email was sent. The send button felt like the detonator of a time bomb. Laura closed her laptop, but didn't shut it down. She knew that from this moment on, everything she had planned for the last 6 months was irreversible. 1.5 hours. They would arrive in about an hour and a half. Laura rose from her office chair. The room felt thick with tension. She walked out of the office, down the dark hallway to the kitchen. The rain outside was getting heavier, beating against the windows as if it wanted to get in. The sound became the perfect background music for the drama that was about to unfold. In the kitchen, she turned on the kettle, not for guests, but for herself. She needed something warm to keep her hands steady. Her mind was already cold as ice. While waiting for the water to boil, Laura picked up her phone. She opened her contact list and dialed a number. The call was answered on the first ring, as if the person on the other end had been waiting. Reza, Laura said softly. Reza was the lawyer she had hired, a sharp, young professional with a thirst for justice. Mrs. Hayes, I've received it, Reza replied from the other end, his voice professional and focused. The recording is clean. This is more than enough. This is the final nail in their coffin. They're coming here, Reza. I provoked her. Jessica won't stand being called stupid by me. She'll drag Ethan here to assert her dominance. A brief sigh was heard from Reza. As we predicted, all right, Mrs. Hayes, the team is on the move. As planned, we will be there in an hour and a half. We'll let them go in first. How much time do you need? Laura looked at the kitchen wall clock. 1:50 a.m. Give me 15 minutes, she said. 15 minutes? Reza sounded hesitant. Ma'am, You don't need to take the risk. We can. I need 15 minutes, Laura cut in, her tone firm. I want a confession in front of witnesses. I want them to confess in my own house, in front of the audit team. The phone recording is strong evidence, but a live confession under pressure will completely destroy them. I want them to witness their own destruction. 15 minutes, Reza, then do your job. A moment of silence. Very well, Mrs. Hayes. 15 minutes. The team will be on standby within a 1-mile radius. We will enter the moment you give the signal, or if we hear anything that puts you in danger. I won't be in danger, Laura said. The most dangerous person in that room will be me. See you soon. Laura hung up without waiting for a reply. The kettle whistled. She poured the hot water into a mug, dropping in a chamomile tea bag. A calming aroma, a stark contrast to the state of her heart. She carried her mug to the living room. She turned on the main lights. The room was bathed in bright light, the cream-colored sofa she and Ethan had chosen together, their wedding photo on the wall. Laura stared at the photo. Her smile in the picture was so genuine, full of hope. Ethan's was too. What had happened to that man? Laura took the wedding photo off the wall. She carried it to the kitchen, opened the frame, and took out the photograph. She folded the picture and threw it in the trash. She placed the empty frame back on the table. She used the remaining hour to contact one more person. The most important person this time. Her finger stopped on the name Uncle David. Mr. Stevenson, her maternal uncle, a father figure to her. He was the true owner of the company where Ethan and Jessica worked. Jessica was merely the daughter of Mr. Stevenson's old business partner who had retired due to illness. Mr. Stevenson had entrusted the daily operations to Jessica's father, and now to Jessica, without ever revealing that he was the actual majority shareholder. Jessica, in her arrogance, thought the company was hers to plunder. Ethan never knew about this connection. Laura had intentionally kept it hidden. For her, marriage was about love, not family connections. A mistake she now regretted. The call connected. Hello, Uncle. Laura, honey. You're still up? Mr. Stevenson's voice was deep and wise. Not yet, Uncle. The fish is in the trap, just as you predicted, Laura said. That girl, Jessica, she really did it. Called you? She didn't just call Uncle. She insulted me and gave us the verbal confession we needed. The recording is with Reza. Mr. Stevenson let out a long sigh. Good, very good, Laura. I knew I could count on you. The independent audit team is ready. They will leave with Reza. They will seize all the servers as soon as they get a live confession. I know, Uncle. Thank you for trusting me. No, my dear. Thank you. You could have stayed silent and just filed for divorce, but you chose to fight to clean up our family's company. You remind me of your mother, strong and smart. Laura smiled faintly. Ethan will be here too. That weak man, Mr. Stevenson grumbled. He will get what he deserves. He dared to hurt my favorite niece. Don't worry about him. Focus on your goal. I just want this to be over, Uncle. It will be over tonight, my dear. Tonight, justice will be served. Now, prepare yourself. Stay calm. Remember all the preparations I had you practice. You are in charge tonight. Yes, Uncle. Talk to you later. Goodbye. The call ended. Laura put down her phone. She felt stronger. She was not alone in this fight. She returned to the living room. She sat in a single armchair, directly facing the front door, like a lioness waiting in her territory. She adjusted her dress, which was slightly askew. She had to look perfect, not for them, but for herself. Time ticked by. 2:30 a.m. 2:45 a.m. The rain began to subside, leaving a biting cold in the air. At 2:58 a.m., Laura checked the tracking app on her phone. The blue dot representing Ethan's car, or rather, Jessica's car, stopped right in front of her house's gate. At 2:59 a.m., the sound of a car door slamming shut, full of anger, was heard. The sound of hurried footsteps on the walkway to the door. 3 a.m. Exactly. The doorbell rang once, twice, then repeatedly and brutally, as if someone was punching it. Laura took a final sip of her tea. It was cold now. She placed the cup on the table. She stood up, smoothing her dress. With calm and steady steps, she walked towards the front door. She wouldn't let them wait. The welcoming party had to begin. Laura opened the door. Before her stood two figures she knew so well, yet they looked so foreign under the dim porch light. Jessica stood in front, her chest heaving with anger. Her beautiful face was flushed, her eyes blazing, her hair slightly disheveled. She was wearing only an oversized men's dress shirt. Laura recognized it as one of Ethan's work shirts and short shorts. An outfit deliberately designed to provoke. Behind her, Ethan stood rigidly, his face as pale as a ghost. His eyes were wide with fear, staring at Laura as if seeing a ghost. He looked like he wanted to run, but Jessica's grip on his arm was too strong. Laura leaned against the doorframe, her face calm, almost expressionless. She deliberately let her neat dress be a stark, piercing contrast to Jessica's appearance. "Finished with your overtime?" Laura greeted them, her voice flat, with no trace of anger or tears. The question ignited Jessica. "How dare you?" Jessica hissed. She pushed Ethan aside and strode forward, barging into the house. She wasn't invited, but she acted as if the house was hers. "Shut your mouth," Jessica snapped, pointing a finger at Laura's face. "You called me stupid. You're the stupid one, a country bumpkin who doesn't know her place." Ethan stumbled in behind her like a frightened pet. "Laura, I can explain." "It's not what you think," Ethan whispered, his words stale and meaningless. Laura closed the door behind them. Click. The sound of the lock turning was deafeningly loud in the silent house. The atmosphere in the living room instantly became heavy. "Not what I think?" Laura repeated Ethan's words. She walked past them, taking a position in the center of the room. "So, what should I think, Ethan? You said you were working late at Jessica's office. But at 1:30 inches the morning, Jessica called me from your phone, saying you were sleeping together, and now you both show up at my house at 3 a.m., looking like this. Help me out here. What's the logical explanation?" Ethan couldn't answer. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Jessica laughed, a loud, jarring laugh. "Stop it, Ethan. Don't waste your time explaining to this woman." She threw herself onto the main sofa, the one Laura usually rested on. She crossed her legs, deliberately showing off her bare thighs. "Listen, Laura, I'm not here to argue," Jessica said, her tone condescending. "I'm here to take what's mine." "Yours?" Laura asked, her eyebrows raised slightly. "Yes. Ethan and everything he owns," Jessica said, looking around the room with a judgmental gaze. "This house is decent. I might renovate it, replace all this old-fashioned furniture." "Jessica, don't," Ethan pleaded, looking extremely panicked. "Laura, let's talk about this calmly. Please." "Be quiet, Ethan," Jessica snapped again. "Are you a man or not? Show her who's in charge." Jessica then turned her gaze back to Laura, a proud and malicious smile on her lips. "You don't know, do you? Your stupid husband here is in a lot of trouble at the office. Big trouble." Laura remained silent. She waited. This was the part she had been waiting for. He made a mistake. "Embezzlement," Jessica continued, savoring every word. "He embezzled company money, my money." "Jessica, that's not true," Ethan cried out, his voice an octave higher. "You told me to do it. You said it was for..." Slap. Jessica's hand landed hard on Ethan's cheek. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Ethan staggered back, holding his cheek, his eyes welling up with tears. "You weak man," Jessica sneered, uncaring. "See, Laura? This is the man you worship, a man who can't do anything right. But me," Jessica pointed to herself, "I'm the kind one, protecting him." Jessica's face turned cynical. "I have all the evidence. The wire transfer receipts are enough to make him rot in jail for the rest of his life." "Then why are you protecting him?" Laura asked, her voice still calm. Jessica laughed again. "Why? Because I can, and because I need his signature. As collateral, he's already signed over his assets. Everything he owns, this house, his car, his savings, it's all mine now as compensation for the company money he stole." Jessica stood up and walked towards Laura, invading her personal space. She looked Laura up and down. So, you see, you haven't just lost a husband, you've lost everything. You'll walk out of this house with nothing but the clothes on your back and that ugly dress. Ethan collapsed weakly onto the floor, sobbing quietly. No, Laura, I was forced. Jessica smiled, satisfied. This was the victory she wanted. She wanted to see Laura broken. So, who's the stupid one now? Jessica whispered, right in Laura's face. Laura didn't back down. She looked straight into Jessica's eyes. The fire in Jessica's eyes met the ice in Laura's. Laura glanced at the wall clock. 3:14 a.m. Almost 15 minutes. You are, Laura replied softly. What? You still have the nerve to fight back? Jessica raised her hand, preparing to slap Laura as she had slapped Ethan. Laura's hand moved faster. She didn't slap back. She caught Jessica's wrist in midair. Her grip was strong, like steel, the result of the self-defense classes she had been secretly taking. Jessica's eyes widened in shock. She hadn't expected physical resistance. I have a few questions for you, Jessica, Laura said, her voice cold and piercing. First, you said Ethan embezzled your company's money. But isn't the destination account for those transfers an account in your name in Switzerland? Jessica's face turned pale. Her proud smile vanished instantly. Whoa, what are you talking about? Second, you said Ethan signed over his assets, Laura continued, not releasing her grip. But isn't this house, the car, and all the major assets 100% in my name, a wedding gift from my family? Ethan has nothing to sign over to you. Laura's grip tightened. Jessica started to wince in pain. Let go of me! Ethan, help me! Ethan just cowered on the floor, too terrified to move. And third, Laura said, you think you came here to destroy me, when in fact, I'm the one who brought you here. 3:15 a.m. Exactly. The doorbell rang. Not the frantic ringing Jessica had made, but a calm, polite, yet authoritative chime, twice. Jessica turned to the door, confused. Laura released Jessica's hand with a sharp shove, sending her stumbling back. Your time is up, Jessica, Laura said. She walked to the door and opened it wide. The porch was full, not with police, but with something far more terrifying for Jessica. Reza, her lawyer, stood in front with a folder in his hand. Behind him stood 4 men in sharp suits, with serious faces, the independent audit team. And behind them stood a calm, middle-aged man who exuded an incredible aura of power. It was Mr. David Stevenson, Laura's uncle. Mr. Stevenson's eyes looked coldly into the room, past Laura, and settled directly on the trembling Jessica. Jessica's face went from pale to white as a sheet. She recognized him. Mr. Stevenson? Her voice trembled. What are you doing here? Mr. Stevenson stepped inside, followed by his team. I'm here to take back my company, Miss Collins, and to hear the rest of your confession. The living room suddenly felt like a courtroom. The air, once tense, now felt cold and heavy, as if all the oxygen had been sucked out. Jessica stood frozen in the middle of the room. Her face, which had been flushed with anger just moments before, was now ashen. The proud smirk that had graced her lips was gone, replaced by a look of confusion and horror. Her eyes were fixed on Mr. David Stevenson. Ethan, on the other hand, looked like an empty shell. He was still huddled on the floor between the sofa and the coffee table. His crying had stopped, replaced by a violent tremor that shook his entire body. He finally understood. He wasn't just in trouble with his wife, he was in a kind of trouble far beyond his imagination. Mr. Stevenson, Jessica's voice came out as a hoarse, disbelieving whisper. What are you doing here? It's 3 a.m. This is my employee's house. Mr. Stevenson stepped further into the room, followed by Reza and the audit team. His expensive leather shoes made no sound on the thick carpet. He stopped right in front of Jessica. Though he was no longer young, his posture was erect, and his aura was intimidating. Your employee? Mr. Stevenson asked, his voice calm but deadly. Ethan is an employee of the company, but you, Jessica, who do you think you are? The owner. I run the company, Jessica replied, trying to gather the last remnants of her pride. My father entrusted it to me. Mr. Stevenson shook his head slowly. Your father, my dear friend, only holds a 15% stake. I entrusted the daily operations to him because he was honest and competent. I thought his daughter would inherit those traits. I was wrong. Jessica's eyes widened. What? What do you mean? I mean, Mr. Stevenson said, that I hold 80% of the company's shares. The company belongs to me and my family. And you, Mr. Stevenson pointed at Jessica, have just been caught red-handed trying to rob my company. No, that's not true, Jessica shrieked. That's a lie. This must be a setup. You, she pointed at Laura. You planned this. Laura, who had been silent, finally spoke up. Yes, I planned it. All eyes turned to her. She stood tall, her dress neat, her face calm, a stark contrast to the hysterical Jessica. You're right, Miss Collins. This is a setup. A trap you built for yourself. Laura walked to her office and returned a minute later with a laptop and a flash drive. She didn't hand them to Mr. Stevenson. She gave them to the lead auditor. Good morning, gentlemen, Laura said politely. Sorry to disturb you at this hour. My name is Laura Hayes. I was a forensic accountant before I got married. 6 months ago, I started to suspect my husband was being manipulated by his superior. Laura glanced at Jessica. You two made a fatal mistake. You underestimated me. You thought I was just a quiet housewife who knew nothing beyond cooking. You forgot. I was trained to find missing numbers. Jessica took a step back. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you do, Laura said, and I'm sure the gentleman from the audit team will be very interested in what I've found. She turned on her laptop and connected it to the large television in the living room. This, Laura said, displaying a complex financial flowchart, is the money trail you both tried to hide. The screen showed a series of transfers from the company's accounts to several fictitious domestic accounts, which then converged into a single bank account in Switzerland. This account, Laura continued, is registered under the name Jessica Collins, not Ethan Hayes. You used my husband as a scapegoat. You had him make small transfers, convincing him they were legitimate bonuses or tactical funds. But all the funds ultimately ended up in your personal account. Ethan lifted his head. She said it was legal. You fool, Mr. Stevenson rebuked him. You participated in theft, Ethan, and you betrayed your wife for this woman. Jessica panicked. That's slander. It's all fabricated. You have no proof. Reza, the lawyer, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Proof, Miss Collins. What kind of proof would you like? Reza took out his phone. Perhaps we can start with the audio proof from your phone call to my client, Mrs. Hayes, at 1:30 this morning. Reza pressed play. Jessica's hoarse, arrogant voice filled the room. Your husband is with me. We're sleeping together. Don't bother us, you stupid woman. Then Laura's cold voice. You can have my useless husband. You're the stupid one. Jessica's face turned a shade of gray. The audit team exchanged glances. This was bad. Very bad. That could be edited, Jessica stammered, though her voice trembled. Really? Reza asked. Then what about this? Laura looked at Jessica. I knew you would come here. I knew your arrogance wouldn't let me have the last word. I knew you had to come here, to my house, to show off your victory. So, Laura continued, I gave you a stage. Laura pointed her finger to a small black dot in the corner of a bookshelf, hidden between a flower vase and thick books. A hidden camera. You're on camera, Jessica. Reza now turned to his laptop, which was connected to the audit team's system. And this is the recording from the last 15 minutes, from the moment you two set foot in this house. On Reza's laptop screen, a video recording appeared. The footage of Jessica slapping Ethan, the footage of Jessica boasting. The video played Jessica's voice with perfect clarity. Your stupid husband here is in a lot of trouble at the office. He made a mistake. Embezzlement. He embezzled company money. My money. But I'm the kind one. Protecting him. He's already signed over his assets. Everything he owns, this house, his car, his savings. It's all mine now. It was a full confession, in front of witnesses, recorded in both audio and video. Jessica staggered. She fell onto the sofa she had just insulted. She was gasping for air, her eyes vacant. She had lost. Mr. Stevenson looked at the audit team. You have everything you need. A verbal confession, a visual confession, and a complete audit trail from my niece. The lead auditor nodded, his face grim. This is more than enough, Mr. Stevenson. This is large-scale, premeditated embezzlement. We will act immediately. He took out his phone and gave swift instructions. Team Bravo, seal the head office now. Freeze all server access under the name Jessica Collins. Secure all data. We're seizing everything. Jessica didn't move. She just stared blankly ahead. Ethan, watching all of this, finally realized this wasn't just the end of his marriage. It was the end of his freedom. The silence that followed the revelation was more deafening than Jessica's earlier screams. The audit team worked quickly and quietly. One of them immediately contacted the bank in Switzerland through a special corporate channel to freeze Jessica's account, using an emergency power of attorney from Mr. Stevenson as the primary owner. Laura's living room had successfully transformed from a stage for humiliation into a command center that crippled a criminal operation. Jessica was still slumped on the sofa. Her beautiful face looked haggard and old, but there was a flicker of fire left in her eyes. My father, she hissed. You're going to destroy my father. He's sick. This will kill him. Mr. Stevenson, who was speaking quietly with Reza, turned around. His stern face now looked sad. Your father is my friend, Jessica. I considered you my own daughter. It was precisely because he was sick that I trusted you. But you, Mr. Stevenson walked closer, you used my trust and your father's illness as a shield. You robbed the company your father built with honest sweat. You are the one destroying him, not us. We are trying to save what's left of his legacy. Jessica couldn't answer. The truth hit her harder than the slap she had given Ethan. Across the room, Reza the lawyer approached Ethan. Ethan was still on the floor, shaking violently. Reza didn't crouch down. He stood towering over Ethan, looking at him with a cold gaze. Ethan Hayes, Reza said. On behalf of my client, Mrs. Laura Hayes. Reza bent down slightly, not out of respect, but to hand over an envelope. These are the divorce papers. Mrs. Hayes is filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and your involvement in criminal activity. Ethan stared at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. Divorce? No, Laura. Laura, don't. This was the moment Ethan had been waiting for. He forgot about the audit team, forgot about Mr. Stevenson. He saw his only lifeboat. He tried to grab her leg. Laura, honey, please, forgive me, he sobbed, his tears breaking through in a pathetic display. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I was set up. It was Jessica who set me up. She threatened me. Laura, please don't leave me. I'll do anything. I'll get on my knees, please. Laura took a step back, maintaining her distance. Her face remained calm, but her eyes showed deep disappointment. Her neat dress contrasted sharply with the sight of Ethan, a broken mess at her feet. Your prayers are not for me, Ethan. You should be praying to God, asking for forgiveness for all your sins, Laura said, her voice soft but firm. A mistake happens once, Laura continued. You did this for months. That wasn't a mistake. It was a conscious choice. You chose to sleep with her. You chose to steal for her. You chose to lie to me in our own home on my birthday. But you, Laura cut him off. And her, Laura glanced at Jessica, made the same mistake. You underestimated me. Laura now looked straight into Jessica's eyes. You thought because I was quiet, I was stupid. You thought because I was a wife who dedicated my life to our home, I didn't have a brain. You thought because of my reserved nature, Laura's eyes glinted, I was some old-fashioned, weak, submissive woman. You were wrong, Jessica, Laura said. My principles are my identity. They are my daily reminder to hold on to integrity, to honesty, to honor, something you clearly lack. Laura smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You called me a stupid woman? Did you know? This entire plan, this whole trap, all the evidence the audit team has gathered, It was all the work of this stupid woman. I knew both of your weaknesses, Laura continued her monologue. Ethan is weak to money and flattery. You, she looked at Jessica, are weak to your own pride. You can't resist showing off. You have to win. You have to insult. Complete silence. Even the audit team paused their work to listen. You thought that 1:30 a.m. phone call was your idea? Laura asked. Jessica lifted her head, confused. No, it was my idea. This was the final blow. Ethan and Jessica were both stunned. I knew Ethan was with you, Laura explained. I knew he would be careless with his phone around you. All I had to do was bait you. An hour before you called me, I sent a text to Ethan's phone from an unknown number. Reza smiled. This was his favorite part. The message read, Laura said, Ethan, I know where you are. I know what you're doing with Jessica. I have all the proof. You better confess now. Laura looked at Jessica. You read that message, didn't you? You panicked. You thought someone else knew. Your arrogance took over. You thought that instead of being found out, you should be the one to control the narrative. You had to prove that you were the winner. So you called me. You called me to insult me, to silence me, when in reality, you were just following a script that I had already written. Jessica's jaw dropped. Her face showed absolute horror. She hadn't just lost. She had been played from the very beginning. She was a puppet in Laura's revenge play. I'm the stupid one, Jessica whispered to herself. Yes, Laura replied. You finally realize it. Reza opened the front door. Two tall, well-built men in corporate security uniforms entered. They weren't police, but their demeanor was just as firm. Mr. Stevenson, one of the officers said, the police are on their way to the head office. The servers have been secured. What are your instructions for these two? Mr. Stevenson looked at Ethan and Jessica with a tired expression. Take them, separate them in different cars, hand them over to the authorities when they arrive. Make sure they don't speak to each other. The security officers moved. One grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him to his feet. Ethan didn't resist. His body was as limp as a rag doll. The second officer approached Jessica. Come on, ma'am. Please stand up. Jessica didn't move. She stared at Laura with pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. Laura just looked back at her. For you, it's just beginning. Enjoy the legal process. Jessica was dragged away, screaming and struggling. Ethan just cried silently. They were both escorted out of the house, past Laura, who stood tall in the doorway. The door closed. The sound of Jessica's screams was muffled, then gone. The living room was quiet again. Only Laura, Mr. Stevenson, Reza, and the audit team, who were packing up their equipment, remained. Laura walked to the dining table and picked up her untouched birthday cake. She looked at the number 30 candles. Happy birthday, mister. Stevenson whispered from behind her, placing a hand on his niece's shoulder. Laura turned. For the first time that night, a genuine smile appeared on her face. After the front door closed, the sound of Jessica's forced departure finally faded into the night's silence. Laura's living room felt vast and empty, as if a great storm had just passed through. Mr. Stevenson, Reza, and the audit team were still there. Their necks were low, busy coordinating with other authorities outside. Mr. Stevenson was the first to approach Laura. His face looked tired, but his eyes shone with pride. Laura, he said, his deep voice softening, you did it. You didn't just save your assets, you saved the entire company. I don't know what to say. Laura nodded, still a bit stiff. The job is done, Uncle. Thank you for believing in me and for bringing the team. Reza, her lawyer, organized his files. Mrs. Hayes, from now on, let us take over. The police will handle them. Your focus now should be on your recovery. I will handle the divorce proceedings as quickly as possible. With the evidence of adultery and criminal activity, Ethan won't be able to claim anything from you. We will also file for damages. Laura looked at her lawyer. Do what you have to do, Mr. Reza. Make sure they receive the punishment they deserve. After a few final instructions, Mr. Stevenson and his team finally left. I'll call you in the morning, dear, Mr. Stevenson said before stepping out. Get some rest. You deserve it. By 4 a.m., the house was finally Laura's alone. The silence that now enveloped it felt different. It wasn't an oppressive or lonely silence. It was a clean silence, a silence that marked the end of something rotten. Laura stood in the middle of her living room. There were mud stains from the officer's shoes on the carpet. Her cold chamomile tea was on the table, the empty wedding photo frame she had carelessly placed. Instead of feeling tired or wanting to sleep, Laura felt a strange surge of energy. She didn't cry. She didn't feel broken. She felt light. She didn't go to the bedroom. She went to the kitchen and got a large trash bag. Then she started to clean. This wasn't just cleaning, it was a cleansing ritual. She started with Ethan's home office. All his papers, all his personal documents, all the remnants of the work Ethan had brought home, she put them all in the bag. She pulled out the drawers, emptying them indiscriminately. She moved to the master bedroom, the bed they had once shared. Laura looked at it for a moment. Without hesitation, she stripped all the sheets, pillowcases, and the comforter. She rolled them up and put them in another trash bag. She wasn't going to wash them. She was going to throw them away. Then, she opened Ethan's closet, the neat shirts she had often ironed. The expensive suits that Jessica had bought him, Laura knew now. She pulled everything out, throwing it on the floor. Then, she stuffed it all into trash bags. The expensive shoes, the belts, the watch lying on the nightstand, everything went in. Finally, she went to the bathroom. Ethan's toothbrush, his cologne, his shaving cream. She swept everything off the counter, straight into the trash. At 5 a.m., as the first light of dawn began to appear, 6 large trash bags stood by the front door. All traces of Ethan in the house were gone. Elsewhere, in a busy police station, Jessica was experiencing the true meaning of loss. She wasn't placed in a comfortable waiting room. She was thrown into a cold, foul-smelling temporary holding cell with other detainees. The shirt of Ethan's she had worn with such pride now looked dirty and rumpled. Her beautiful face was streaked with tears and smudged mascara. "Don't you know who I am?" she shrieked for the umpteenth time at a passing officer. The officer stopped, looking at her with a bored expression. "We know exactly who you are, Miss Jessica Collins. You are the prime suspect in a multi-million-dollar embezzlement case. Your face is already all over the morning news portals." Jessica's eyes widened. She glanced at a small television hanging in the corner of the station. Sure enough, on the morning news program, her photo was displayed prominently. Next to it was Ethan's photo. The headline read, "Major Embezzlement Scandal at Stevenson Group. Boss and subordinate conspire to siphon funds." Her reputation, her pride, her power, all destroyed in a single night. "Phone call! Give me my right to a phone call!" she screamed. "You already called your lawyer earlier, but it seems your lawyer is busy," the officer mocked. Of course, he was busy. Mr. Stevenson's legal team had made sure that all lawyers affiliated with Jessica knew they would be up against a true corporate giant. No one wanted to touch this case. In a different interrogation room, Ethan was sobbing uncontrollably in front of 2 detectives. He was no longer trying to defend himself. He was telling them everything. I'm guilty, sir. But I was forced. Jessica planned everything. She used her body. She used her position. A small pawn who also enjoyed the money? One of the detectives asked, throwing a stack of photos on the table. Photos of Ethan and Jessica on vacation, at fancy dinners. A photo of a new sports car Jessica had bought for Ethan. Listen, Ethan, the detective said. We know Jessica was the mastermind, but you were her accomplice. You made the transfers, you're complicit. But if you cooperate, if you give us everything you know, your sentence might be reduced. I'll cooperate, Ethan exclaimed desperately. I'll give you everything, all the accounts, all the dates. I'll testify against her. Please help me, sir. I'm a victim here. The detective just smiled faintly. A traitor will always be a traitor, until the end. Back at the house, the sun was beginning to rise. Laura stood in front of an open window. The fresh morning air came in, chasing away the last remnants of the previous night's foulness. The house felt empty, but in a good way. She hadn't slept, but she didn't feel tired. She took her untouched birthday cake from the dining table. The cake was a symbol of a lonely old life. She carried the cake to the kitchen and, without hesitation, threw it in the trash. "I'll buy a new cake," she murmured to herself. She walked to the bathroom, undressed, and stood under a hot shower. She showered for a long time, scrubbing her body as if she were scrubbing away the last traces of bitter memories. She felt clean, reborn, right on her birthday. 6 months had passed. Time moved quickly, bringing significant changes to Laura's life. The legal process was tough but certain. Thanks to the solid evidence Laura had gathered and her full cooperation with the authorities, the case became one of the most talked about white-collar crimes. Today was the day of the verdict. Laura sat on a visitor's bench in the courtroom. She didn't sit in the front, but in the middle rows. She came not for revenge, but to see an ending. She wore an elegant dark blue business suit, her hair styled professionally. Her appearance exuded an aura of confidence and professionalism. She no longer looked like an abused wife. She looked like a leader. In the defendant's box, Jessica sat with her back to her. Her appearance was a far cry from 6 months ago. No more designer clothes or perfect makeup. She wore a prison uniform, her face was pale, and she looked much older. Next to her, in the same uniform, sat Ethan. He kept his head bowed low, not daring to look at anyone. The judge read the verdict. The defendant, Jessica Collins, the judge's voice echoed, is found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of committing the crimes of corruption, embezzlement, and money laundering in a premeditated manner. Laura listened to the list of crimes. Sentenced to 15 years in prison and a fine of $50 million, or an additional 2 years in prison. A stifled cry was heard from Jessica's family's bench across the room. Jessica herself froze. 15 years. Her youth would be spent behind bars. All personal assets of the defendant proven to be from the proceeds of crime are seized by the state to be returned to the injured party, the Stevenson Group. The gavel struck. The first karma was served. Then the judge turned to Ethan. The defendant, Ethan Hayes, the judge didn't even use his full name, is found guilty of aiding and abetting the crime of corruption. Because of his cooperation and his status as a justice collaborator who exposed all of Jessica's wrongdoing, his sentence was lightened, sentenced to 7 years in prison. 7 years. Ethan lifted his head, his desperate eyes searching the crowd. His eyes met Laura's. "Laura!" His lips moved without a sound, pleading. Laura looked at him without hatred, without anger, without love. There was only emptiness. She looked at Ethan as if he were a stranger, as if she were looking at a blank sheet of paper. Then Laura turned her face away. For Ethan, that empty gaze and indifferent attitude felt more painful than the 7-year prison sentence. He had been erased. He no longer existed in Laura's life. That was his heaviest punishment. As Jessica was led out, her eyes blazed with hatred when she saw Laura. "This is all your fault, you bitch! You think you've won? I'll get out and I'll find you!" Laura didn't flinch. She just looked at Jessica calmly. "Take a number," she said softly. "The line is long." Jessica screamed in frustration before being dragged out of the room. It was over. Laura walked out of the courtroom. Reza was waiting for her outside. "How do you feel, Mrs. Hayes?" "Light, Mr. Reza." "Very light," Laura replied, smiling. "There's one more thing," Reza said, handing her a brown envelope. "This is your official divorce decree, signed and legalized by the court. You are 100% free." Laura accepted the envelope. The divorce decree. The end of one chapter and the beginning of a new one. "Thank you for everything, Mr. Reza. One more question, ma'am." "Mr. Stevenson keeps asking," Reza said. "His offer still stands. Head of the Internal Audit Division at the Stevenson Group. The position has been waiting for you for the last 3 months." Laura smiled. "Tell my uncle I'll start on Monday." 2 weeks later, in the towering Stevenson Group building, there was an office on the 30th floor, a corner office with a beautiful city view. The office that once belonged to Jessica. Now, it had been completely renovated. The walls were painted an ivory white. The furniture was minimalist and elegant. At the large, neat desk sat Laura. She was leading a meeting via video call with her audit team. I want you all to re-examine all the reports from the third quarter. There's an anomaly in the logistics division. I've marked it on page 28. Please. Her phone vibrated. A calendar reminder. Birthday. Laura smiled. That evening, she went home. The house was no longer cold. She had filled it with new, warm furniture, full bookshelves, and lush green plants. She wasn't alone. When she opened the door, a fat orange cat ran to greet her. Hello, Comet, Laura said, stroking the cat. On the dining table, there was no sad little cake. There was a large red velvet cake that she had specially ordered. Her phone rang. This time, it wasn't a 1:30 a.m. call. It was a 7 p.m. call. Hello, Uncle, Laura greeted. Hello, dear. Happy 31st birthday. Mr. Stevenson's voice was warm. I'm so proud of you. My best new employee. Thank you, Uncle. Thank you for the opportunity. No, thank you. You are a blessing. After hanging up, Laura sat on her balcony, looking at the city lights. Her cat was purring in her lap. She cut a slice of cake for herself. It tasted sweet. She had weathered the worst storm of her life. She had lost a husband, but she had found herself. She had found her strength, her honor, and her career again. Phone call wasn't a curse. It was a wake-up call. The bitterest, yet most precious birthday gift she had ever received. Because that call was what set her free. And that stupid woman was now in full control of her life. And she was very, very happy. 1 year after the verdict, the judge's gavel had sealed the inevitable fate of Jessica and Ethan. Their lives behind bars were the perfect antithesis of the luxury they once enjoyed. Karma, which often moved slowly, had come running this time, demanding its payment in full, and brutally so. Jessica, who was used to giving orders, now had to take them. In the women's prison, her status and beauty meant nothing. In fact, they made her a target. Her arrogance in the early days made her a public enemy in her cell block. She thought she could still control people with her family's remaining money, hiring protection from other inmates. But she was wrong. One afternoon in the prison cafeteria, a senior inmate who felt insulted by Jessica's haughty attitude approached her. So this is the little queen who supposedly stole millions, the woman said, her voice rough. In here, you're a nobody, pretty girl. Jessica, with her remaining arrogance, retorted, Don't touch me, you lowlife. It was her last mistake. The woman didn't slap her. She simply dumped a full plate of rice and saucy food over Jessica's head. Rice, vegetables, and dirty sauce ran down Jessica's once meticulously cared-for hair. The entire cafeteria laughed. Jessica, for the first time in her life, was publicly humiliated without being able to retaliate. She could only stand there, trembling, a mixture of anger and fear. No one helped her. No one cared. It was there that she realized that 15 years would feel like an eternity. The bad news didn't stop there. Her ailing father never recovered from the shock of his daughter's scandal. A month after the verdict, he passed away from a heart attack. His inheritance was frozen to pay the fines and restitution. Jessica was now truly alone, without money, without power, and without a family to rely on. The appeal she filed was flatly rejected. Meanwhile, in a different men's prison, Ethan was serving his sentence in a different, but equally pathetic, way. Ethan was a coward, and prison was no place for cowards. His weak physique and easily intimidated character made him a prime target. He spent his days in fear. He worked in the prison kitchen, peeling onions and potatoes, often crying silently to himself. Every night, he wrote letters. Letters to Laura. Laura, my love, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'll be better. Please visit me, just once. I need to see you. I can't take it in here. Laura, this is my 20th letter. Did you not receive them? I know I was a jerk, but I was your husband. Ah, ex-husband. Please, I'm begging you. Laura, Jessica ruined our lives. She's the devil. I was just a victim, believe me. He gave the letters to the guards, hoping they would be delivered. He didn't know that all the letters reached Reza, Laura's lawyer. As per Laura's instructions, Reza stamped each letter with a thick red stamp, returned to sender. One day, his stack of letters, which had reached dozens, was returned to his cell. A stack of papers full of fake remorse. Ethan stared at the pile of letters. He roared, not a roar of anger, but the desperate roar of a broken man. He finally understood. Laura would never come. The 7 years in prison felt light compared to the realization that he had lost the only good thing in his life due to his own stupidity. Outside the prison walls, in a luxurious office building, a new plaque was installed in the lobby. Internal Auditor of the Year. Below it, the name Laura Hayes was engraved. Laura, who was leading a meeting, received an email notification from Reza. Subject: Appeal denied. She read it briefly, her expression unchanged. She didn't feel happy, nor sad. She just felt done. She closed the email and returned her focus to the screen in front of her. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to page 42. There's a budget inefficiency there that I'd like to discuss. The past was over, and she had no time to look back. 2 years had passed since that fateful night. Today was Laura's 32nd birthday. The scene was vastly different from her 30th. At 5 p.m., Laura closed her laptop in her new office. The 30th floor office now felt very much like Laura Warm, neat, with a few abstract paintings on the walls, and a perfectly blooming orchid on her desk. She was now the head of the Audit and Compliance Division of the Stevenson Group, her uncle's trusted right hand. Leaving already, Mrs. Hayes? Her assistant asked from the door. Yes, Rena. Please make sure the team gets this report before 9 a.m. tomorrow. And have a great weekend, Laura said with a smile. Will do, ma'am. And happy birthday, Rena said sincerely. Laura's smile widened. Thank you, Rena. She went home. The house that was once cold and lonely now felt alive. She had completely renovated the living room. The cream-colored sofa was long gone, replaced by a comfortable olive green leather sofa. The wedding photo was gone, replaced by a large, calming piece of calligraphy art. Her cat, Comet, now even fatter, ran to greet her at the door. Hello, sweetie, Laura said, scratching Comet's chin. She wasn't alone. Laughter could be heard from the kitchen. Mr. Stevenson and his wife, Aunt Carol, were busy preparing dinner. They had insisted on celebrating their favorite niece's birthday at Laura's house. Oh, you're home, dear, Aunt Carol greeted, hugging Laura warmly. Go get changed. Your uncle can't wait to carve this roast chicken. Hello, Uncle, Auntie. Why go to all this trouble? Laura said, her heart warming. This was family, something she thought she had lost. Trouble? You're our daughter now, Mr. Stevenson grumbled, but his eyes twinkled with pride. That night, the dining table that once held only a sad little cake was now full of delicious food and laughter. They ate, talked about work, about vacation plans, about the simple things that bring happiness. At exactly 8 p.m., the doorbell rang. Reza, the lawyer, arrived with a large bouquet of flowers. Happy birthday, Mrs. Hayes. I can't stay long, but I brought these. In his other hand was an envelope. And this is the final file. Jessica's final overseas assets have been successfully liquidated. As per your instructions, a total of $15 million was transferred this morning to the foundations you designated foundations for the protection of women and children, victims of violence. Laura accepted the envelope. She didn't open it. She just nodded. Thank you, Mr. Reza. You've worked hard. After all the guests had left, Laura stood alone on her balcony. The night air was cool. She held a cup of chamomile tea, just like that night. But this time, the tea felt warm and comforting. She remembered that night, the 1:30 a.m. phone call, the insults, the pain, but it all felt so distant now, like watching a movie about someone else's life. She looked down at the glittering city. She had turned poison into medicine. She had taken back her life, her power, and her dignity. She hadn't just survived, she had triumphed. She raised her cup, toasting herself under the moonlight. Happy birthday, Laura, she whispered. Welcome to the beautiful rest of your life. Her phone vibrated. A text message, not from the past, but from a young architect she had met at a charity project last month. "Happy birthday, Laura. Hope you had a great day. Coffee tomorrow?" Laura smiled. She didn't reply right away. She looked at the stars. For the first time, she felt ready to open a completely new chapter. Life was long, and that stupid woman now knew exactly how to live it wisely. She was finally free. Truly and completely free.